Their crimes are live streamed. They openly declare their intent to kill and maim, to destroy, to starve, to ethnically cleanse.
There have been cases where the impasse of the Security Council has been circumvented by a decision of the General Assembly to act, for example, uniting for peace. And this might be one opportunity to consider in this case.
Of the accountability, transparency, and institutional memory of the office of the President of the General Assembly.
The most recent chapter of the Council's failure just unfolded with its inability to adopt a draft resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire on November 20th, 2024, submitted by the E10. We meet again in a resumed emergency special session of the General Assembly while the catastrophic situation in the occupied Palestinian territory and Gaza continue to exacerbate.
Have been calling for every day for 14 months. It is what this General Assembly wisely called for more than a year ago. We call on all states to support a ceasefire. Yesterday, the General Assembly, by an overwhelming majority, voted for an end of Israelis' unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory and for a high-level international conference to implement the UN resolutions pertaining to the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the two-state solution. Stop the bleeding and restore life in Gaza so it can be once again the beating heart of Palestine. Stop the bleeding so we can restore credibility to our international system, so we can ensure it for future generations, so our people can live, so our region can thrive, so that international peace and security can be preserved.
Can it represent the aspirations of all 193 member states of the UN General Assembly, or will it continue to dance to the tune of the 5 permanent members of its Security Council? But first, we begin with a keynote speech by someone who has his work cut out for him as president of the biggest global assembly in the world, the UN General Assembly. It is my pleasure to welcome to the stage His Excellency Philemon Yang, who is former Prime Minister of Cameroon and the current president of the UN General Assembly.
In Gaza, where medical and humanitarian needs grow more desperate by the hour, health facilities are besieged and health and humanitarian workers are killed. This cannot be allowed to continue. For even wars have rules. Those rules must be respected. Excellencies, In the Pact for the Future, nations, all nations, reaffirm their commitment to protecting civilians in armed conflicts. Accordingly, we must intensify efforts to strengthen mechanisms that prevent violations of international humanitarian law and hold perpetrators, wherever they might be, accountable. This requires integrating international humanitarian law into domestic legal systems, criminalizing grave breaches, training armed forces, and fostering its public understanding. We must also promote the universal ratification of key treaties, particularly the additional protocols to the Geneva Conventions. Disseminating knowledge of international humanitarian law to all parties in conflict is equally vital. Our collective influence must foster compliance, prevent violations, and address breaches decisively. We must not reduce international humanitarian law to an empty slogan. That would be unfortunate. By upholding international humanitarian law, we save lives, preserve human dignity, and increase the likelihood of peace. I call on all nations to take decisive action to ensure respect for international humanitarian law and thereby uphold the principles of humanity even in the most trying times. I thank you.
Abide by as a condition to become a member of the General Assembly of the United Nations and orders and decisions of the International Court of Justice